Welcome back, Wayfarer. I'm so glad you could join us tonight. It's a privilege to accompany you on our journey, and I hope you find a deep and restful sleep when we reach our destination. You have found your way to another quiet sanctuary, and you are very welcome here. Before we step out into the evening, take a moment to settle. Let the weight of your body sink into the mattress. Feel the support of the bed beneath you, a solid foundation holding you steady. Take a deep, slow breath in, filling your lungs with the coolness of the night. And as you exhale, let the tension in your jaw, your neck, and your hands dissipate and flow from your body. You are safe. You are grounded. You are home. Tonight, our journey takes us toward the very edge of the land, where the earth gives way to the sea. We are walking a coastal path at dusk, a narrow ribbon of grey stone and wind-bent grass that clings to the jagged cliffs of the Atlantic coast. The sun has already dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a sky the colour of a ripe plum, streaked with veins of pale translucent gold. Out here, the air is sharp and invigorating. It carries the heavy, tingling scent of cold ozone, drying kelp, and the deep, rhythmic pulse of the ocean. You can hear the crunch of the sea shingle beneath your boots, a rhythmic, hollow sound that echoes against the granite cliff face. To your left, the waves are breathing, a long, slow hiss as the white foam retreats over the pebbles, followed by the deep, booming thump of the next swell hitting the rocks. It is a primal sound, the heartbeat of the world. But as we round the final bend in the path, the wildness of the sea wind begins to fade. The land rises up in a protective embrace, and the air begins to change. The salt is still there, but it is now layered with something warmer, heavier, and more ancient. It is the scent of seasoned timber, the dry musk of oak, and the faint metallic tang of hot iron. We are heading for the cooper's yard, a small cluster of stone buildings tucked into a natural fold of the harbour, where the high stone walls shield the work from the spray of the tide. Here, the swell and lurch of the ocean is met by the order of the circle. As we cross the threshold of the yard, the cold mist of the coast is replaced by the radiating heat of a workshop hearth. You feel the temperature rise against your skin, a welcoming wall of warmth that tells you the journey for today is done. You step into the center of the yard, and the first thing you notice is the working silence. The walls are made of massive, whitewashed granite blocks, damp with the humidity of the coast, but radiating the warmth of the fire. The floor is a packed, dark earth, softened by decades of accumulated wood shavings, sawdust, and the fine blonde curls of oak that have fallen from the benches today. Propped against the wall in organized, towering stacks are the staves. To the uninitiated, they look like simple, rough-hewn planks of wood. But to the wayfarer, they are the raw potential of a vessel. You walk over and pick one up. It is surprisingly heavy. The wood is dense, cold, and carries a stubborn tactile weight. This is heart of oak, felled 3 winters ago from a slow-growing forest where the rings are tight and the strength is absolute. It has been left to season in the salt air, the wind pulling the moisture from its fibres until it is as stable as the stone walls around you. You run your hand along the grain, feeling the microscopic ridges and the velvet rough texture of the fibres. You notice how the wood has been quarter sawn. This is the cooper's first and most vital secret. By cutting the timber along the natural vascular veins that radiate from the center of the tree, the cooper ensures that the wood will never warp, shrink, or leak. You hold the stave up to the amber firelight, and you can see them. Tiny silver-flecked rays that look like frozen lightning trapped in the amber grain. These rays are the structural fortress of the cask. If the grain ran any other way, the liquid inside would eventually find a path through the pores of the wood, escaping through the long grain. But here, because of the way it was sawn, the oak is a solid, impenetrable wall. You spend a long moment just appreciating the weight of it, the honesty of a material that was grown for a century, just to be held in your hand tonight. Before you begin to shape the oak, you must attend to your tools. A cooper's yard is only as good as its edges. You move to the whetstone, a large circular stone sitting in a heavy wooden trough of water. You pick up your draw knife, a long heavy blade with a handle at each end, forged from high carbon steel that has been tempered in the local forge. You hold the blade against the spinning stone. The sound is a high-pitched, metallic shh, accompanied by a fine spray of cold water. You feel the vibration in your wrists, a tingling hum that moves through your arms as the stone eats away the dullness of the day's work. It reveals a silver, razor-sharp edge. You do this with every tool. The shaves, the jointer plane, and the curved adze. It is a meditative ritual, a way of focusing the mind. You aren't just sharpening steel, you are preparing your intent. You test the edge of the draw knife with the calloused ball of your thumb. It is cold and extremely sharp, ready to bite into the oak. Now you sit at the dresser's bench, a low wooden horse that has been smoothed to a mirror shine by the friction of 1,000 leather aprons. You secure the stave between the wooden dogs of the bench. You take up the draw knife, leaning your weight back, and the work begins. As you pull the blade toward you, it makes a satisfying stop sound as a thick curl of blonde oak peels away and falls into the rushes. You are jointing the stave. You are not just thinning it. You are carving the bevel. Every stave must be slightly wider in the center and tapered precisely at the ends. The edges must be cut at a specific angle, a slope that faces inward toward the center of the imaginary circle. There are no rulers here. You rely on the feel of the knife and the eye for the curve. You run your thumb along the beveled edge, checking for the slightest ripple of imperfection. The smell of the oak is intoxicating now. It's a dry, tannic scent, like a forest floor in autumn, mixing with the metallic tang of the steel and the faint smell of wood smoke from the hearth. You spend a long time here, in the rhythmic pull of the knife, lost in the geography of the grain. Each shave brings you closer to the perfect fit. You move to the centre of the packed earth floor, where a single heavy iron ring rests. This is the raising hoop. It is the anchor, the starting point for the entire architecture of the cask. You begin the setting. You stand the first stave upright inside the hoop, then the second, fitting the beveled edges together like a puzzle. It's a delicate clattering dance. The wood clacks against the iron, a bright percussive sound that echoes off the granite walls and up into the dark rafters where the shadows of the fire play. At first the staves are unstable. They lean and they wobble, threatening to collapse in a heap of timber if you breathe too heavily. But as you add the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the collective tension begins to hold them. You work your way around the circle, using your hip to keep the structure upright as you slot the tapered edges together. This is known as the rose. It looks like a jagged wooden crown. The top edges splayed out like the petals of an oak flower, while the bottom is held tight by the iron ring. You take a heavy wooden mallet, the commander, and tap the staves down into the hoop. The sound is a deep, hollow thud that resonates through the floor and into your very bones. You stand back and wipe the sweat from your brow. The skeleton of the cask is finished. It is a beautiful, fragile thing, held together only by the friction of the joints and the weight of the hoop. It is a circle that hasn't yet realized its own strength. To make it permanent, to make it watertight, you must now call upon the two most powerful elements in the yard. Tonight, the oak will meet the fire. The cask stands in the centre of the workshop floor, a jagged wooden rose awaiting its transformation. It is still rigid and stubborn, the oak resisting the circular life it was born to take. To make it yield, we must look to the corner of the yard where the cresset sits, a heavy iron cage shaped like a beacon, standing on 3 stout legs. You fill the cage with the blonde oak chips and shavings you pulled from the dresser's bench earlier. You strike a spark, and the dry heart oak takes hold instantly. The fire is small but intense, a bright orange core that smells of ancient, captured sunlight. You lift the wooden rose with both hands and lower it carefully over the cresset, so the fire is held in the very belly of the barrel. Now the atmosphere of the yard shifts. The sharp, dry scent of the workshop is replaced by a rich, sweet, and incredibly heavy aroma. This is the toasting. As the intense heat penetrates the inner walls of the oak, the natural vanillins and hemicellulose in the wood begin to break down and caramelize. It is a warm, culinary scent reminiscent of toasted bread, spice, and vanilla. But heat alone makes the wood brittle. If you were to force it now, it would snap like a dry bone. To make it bend, you must trick the wood into forgetting its rigidity. You take a bucket of cold harbour water and a mop made of raw unspun wool, and you begin to quench the outside of the staves. The sound is a sudden hiss as the water hits the hot wood, turning instantly to a thick cloud of white steam. This steam softens the lignin, the natural glue that holds the tree's fibers together. The oak is now relenting. It is becoming supple, almost like leather. You take a heavy hemp rope and a windlass, looping the line around the splayed petals at the bottom of the rose. As you turn the iron handle of the windlass, the barrel begins to speak. It is a slow, rhythmic creak, groan, pop. It is the sound of 100 years of forest growth being forced into a new shape. You tighten the rope inch by inch, watching as the gaps between the staves vanish. You can feel the immense pressure in the room, the stored energy of the wood fighting back against the rope. One final turn, and the staves meet with a definitive wooden clack. You slide a truss hoop over the bottom and drive it home with your mallet. The barrel is closed. It is warm to the touch, radiating a deep, pulsing heat that feels like a heartbeat against your palms. With the barrel bent and bound, we move to the most precise surgery of the night. The cask is now a solid vessel, but it has no top or bottom. It is merely a wooden tunnel. You take up the chrome, a specialized plane with a curved, heavy base and a tiny razor-sharp steel tooth. You must cut the crows, the deep, narrow groove that runs around the inside of the barrel's rim. You lean over the cask, your shoulder providing the leverage, and push the chrome in a steady, circular motion. The sound is a low, hollow growl as the blade carves into the stubborn end grain. You are creating the track that will hold the head, the circular lid of the cask. You feel the resistance of the oak. It is stubborn even now. You repeat the circle again and again, the fine shavings falling like snow into the center of the barrel. Once the groove is deep and clean, you use an adze, a curved, hoe-like blade, to shave the top edge of the staves into a smooth, sloping chine. You are tapering the wood so that it can be handled without splintering. A finishing touch that speaks of quality. Now you prepare the head. This is a flat disc made of 3 pieces of oak, joined by tiny dowels of dried rush. You don't use glue. Instead, you place a thin strip of dried marsh reeds gathered from the estuary between the joints. When the barrel eventually fills with liquid, the reeds will swell, creating a seal that is more perfect than any man-made adhesive. You carefully slot the head into the crows. It is a tight fit, it has to be. You use a flagging iron to pry the staves apart just enough to let the disc click into its track. Then you drive the final, permanent iron hoops down the body of the cask. This is the music of the cooper's yard. As the hammer hits the hoop driver, the pitch of the barrel rises. It goes from a dull, earthy thud to a bright, metallic ting. When the note reaches a certain frequency, a clear, ringing tone, you know the cask is tight. You stand back and give the barrel a sharp tap with your knuckles. It rings like a bell. No light can pass through the joints, no air can escape. It is a masterpiece of tension, geometry, and trust. The physical struggle is over, but the barrel is not yet finished. In this yard, every cooper leaves a mark. You take a small branding iron from the edge of the hearth. The tip is glowing red in the shadows. You press it into the head of the cask. The sound is a sharp hiss, and a small plume of white smoke rises, carrying the scent of scorched oak and toasted sugar. You leave your mark, a simple geometric symbol that tells future generations who shaped this wood and which yard sent it out into the world. It is a moment of quiet pride. You run your soot-stained fingers over the brand, feeling the indentation in the grain. You take a handful of beeswax and rub it over the iron hoops to protect them from the salt air of the harbour. The wax melts into the warm metal, giving it a dull, protective sheen. You look around the yard. The fire in the cresset is now just a heap of white ash. The staves that were once a jagged crown are now a solid, perfect vessel. You have taken the wild energy of the oak and the fire and contained it within a circle. The yard is cooling now. The granite walls, which acted as a radiator all evening, are beginning to lose their heat to the coastal night. You feel the heavy, satisfied exhaustion of a day spent shaping the world. Your hands are stained with tannin and soot. Your muscles are weary, but your mind is perfectly still. You climb the narrow wooden ladder to the small loft above the workshop. This is your sanctuary for the night. The loft is simple. A straw mattress, a thick indigo wool blanket, and a small square window that looks out over the harbour wall. As you lie down, the straw crinkles beneath you, settling into the shape of your body with a dry, rustling sound. You pull the heavy blanket up to your chin, feeling the weight of the wool. You can still smell the toasted oak and the beeswax on your skin. It is a grounding, comforting scent that reminds you of the work you've done. Outside, the wildness of the sea has settled into a rhythmic, tidal pulse. The tide is coming in, claiming the harbour once again. You hear the water pulling at the shingle, a natural metronome that matches the slow, steady pace of your own heart. The harbour lights are small and distant, bobbing on the dark water like fallen stars. The heat from the workshop below rises through the floorboards, keeping the chill of the sea air at bay. You are tucked beneath the warmth of the fire and the cool of the salt spray. You think of the cask you built tonight. It will travel across oceans, holding its contents safe against the storms. A silent witness to the skill of the hands that shaped it. It is a vessel of trust. But that is for tomorrow. Tonight, the wood is still. The iron is cold, and the tide is coming in. You let your eyes close, following the sound of the water as it climbs the stone walls of the harbour. You are drifting now, moving with the current, away from the yard. And into the deep, dark, quiet of the coast. Sleep well, Wayfarer. The circle is complete.